This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Welcome, Talk Catholic, the website.com, your host, Tim Kilcoyne. No agendas here, just the straight and narrow, through Mary to Jesus, the Catholic faith proclaimed and preserved. Hope to see you here every week. Talk Catholic with Tim Kilcoyne. Still waiting to give you a Fairways to Faith golf lesson at your service. Fairwaystofaith.com is a revolution waiting to happen. And this is family vacation time. Sometimes that might be the only time that you get to do something tremendously joyful, and that is play the game of golf. Well, I want to continue on with our new series, Fairways to Faith, and we'll continue on also with reclaiming Catholic masculinity by looking at the book Building a Wholesome Family in a Broken World by the Archduke of Austria. And he'll continue on to tell us what a real man looks like when he puts a family together. In any event, I learned the greatness and value of the wonderful game of golf on July 4th. As guys that are single in their 60s, July 4th isn't quite what it used to be. And I thought I'd just head on over to the driving range in the early evening hour, which of course is when many are at a cookout. And I had the place to myself, I would say. But there was one other Lone Ranger there, and he was probably in his early 20s. And I knew that is sad. And just thinking to myself, what are you doing here? The place is a ghost town right now, and aren't you supposed to be at a cookout? And I didn't really get to know him or why he was there, but I could only imagine that there is the possibility he could be running away from something. And thank the Lord for the game of golf to run away too, because it is that kind of game that, you can do by your lonesome and enjoy it. And I hope that's exactly what he was doing. He had a little sadness on his face. I went over to him to give him a few tips, and he appreciated it big time. He was so much a gentleman. Young men this age usually take a pretty good beating, rightfully so, for how they can be psychologically. You could tell this young man was definitely mature for his years, and that also possibly suggests that he's been carrying a cross. Enduring difficulty does render maturity, which is closeness to Christ. And he might have been carrying a cross that night and having to get away from family. That's all that I could think of. And so I was honored just to be able to help him. And for me, it was the most beautiful thing because it lifted me up. I almost thought I had met Jesus himself on the driving range. This gentleman was indeed a gentleman and interested in what I had to say. I honestly felt that was the Lord for me that night. And to be able to give him a few tips that might help him to perhaps enjoy the game a little bit and work on something constructive, it was ministry without question. And I've always looked upon golf and teaching golf as a ministry because it just brings so much real peace and joy. When people can hit the ball a little better than they could the day before, it's a beautiful thing. So anyway, let's continue on with Father Michael Lender's book, Golf and the Spiritual Life. And we can hear a story about the opposite of this gentleman's disposition that I just described. Father says, I once witnessed a playing partner's tantrum that ended with his throwing all of his equipment into a conveniently placed lake into which his ball had disappeared only seconds before. He was having a particularly bad day, but even so, his tirade was unexpected. Usually the most gentle of people, he was always fun to play golf with because of his self-deprecating humor. If he hit a bad shot, he was sure to come out with a comment that cracked the rest of us up. Though he was a fine athlete, success at golf had always eluded him, but no one thought that this bothered him. His comments seemed to indicate that he enjoyed himself despite his poor play. Then, he threw his clubs into the lake, and all of us had to adjust our opinions of his relationship with golf. It didn't take long. After all, the rest of us knew what he was feeling because we had felt it ourselves. This supposedly simple game, this game that we all played whenever we had the time, this game whose mysteries had always eluded us, was under our skin, and it ached terribly, like a disease whose cause and cure were beyond medical science. Sometimes the disease erupted violently. We all knew the symptoms. The disease sometimes appears when all practice swings are perfect, but all real attempts to hit the ball look like the moves of a hyperactive contortionist. Sometimes the outbreak follows a perfect drive and a shanked wedge. Some people lose it when their playing companion's ball bounces off a tree into the fairway and their own drive hits the same tree and stays in the branches. What's been simmering beneath the surface erupts. Some players get quiet, some throw clubs, some begin to hit shots without really getting set or going through a routine. And all of this is brought about by one unvarying factor. It's that gulf between knowing and feeling. Every player knows that golf is perhaps the most difficult of games, despite what it looks like. Yet all of us who play it feel that we should be better than we are. This is what caused our companion's explosion that afternoon. He knew he was playing a difficult game, but he felt that he should be playing it well. When the debate within him got heated enough, his thought that the game was difficult was overwhelmed by the feeling that, difficult or not, he should have figured it out by now. As soon as the feeling outweighed the thought, he threw his stuff into the lake. Then he stomped off the course, vowing never to play the stupid, actually his language is more colorful, game again. We all knew how he felt. Even if we hadn't thrown so much as a broken tee during our playing lives, we'd been tempted to. Golf does that to people. If it didn't look so easy, perhaps we'd be better able to control our feelings. As it is, however, the ball still sits there, daring us to hit it capably. And we fail a lot more often than we succeed. Well, a few weeks later, our equipment-throwing friend called me to see if I wanted to play a quick 9. I almost didn't know what to say. After all, his clubs were still at the bottom of the lake. But then he told me that he got a new set of clubs. I'm just dying to try them out, he said. It was as if his old set of clubs had simply worn out from being hit so consistently on the sweet spot. Of course he had a new set of clubs. It was the most natural thing in the world, wasn't it? So I agreed to play with him, and I never mentioned the old set of clubs, even when he hit the new ones as poorly as he had the old. One day, long after our friend buried his clubs at sea, and after I had been playing for years, I threw a 5-iron. As it sailed through the air, a strange thought came to me. I always told myself that I played golf for fun, but that was obviously not the case. Had I been playing for fun, I'd never have thrown the club. Had my friend been playing for fun, he'd never have thrown all of his equipment into the lake. Had any of us played the game for fun, we'd never have gone through the routine of quitting one moment and taking it up the next. Our problem, I think, was that we all approached the game as human beings tend to approach life in general. Whether we are on the course, at our jobs, or with friends and families, we pay little attention to the disparity between our thoughts and feelings until one of them overwhelms the other. That's when the explosions of despair or anger or shame occur. Then the clubs fly. Or the cruel words pass our lips, or we run out of the house vowing revenge. One of golf's great gifts to people is the clear message that it's important to reconcile what we feel and what we think. We may very well know that the game is difficult, but as long as we feel that we should master it, the disappointments and explosions are bound to occur from time to time. It's only when we allow what we know to influence what we feel that we begin to achieve a balance that will allow us to accept both the failures and the triumphs as part of the game. This balance also presents us with the opportunity to put the good and the bad into perspective. This is why golf, more than any other sport, is a mirror for life, lived creatively and spiritually. As difficult as it is to balance what we know and what we feel on the course, it's considerably easier than it is in other areas of our lives. We have to start somewhere. It might as well be on the first tee. Well, I can so appreciate what Father is talking about in so many ways as a longtime golf professional, where I have enjoyed the heights of playing at a level above and beyond the average, and it only brings great joy, let there be no doubt. What happens when you're just not playing much anymore because of one injury after another, which has very much been the case for myself for several years now, and I'm actually just trying to turn the corner and get back to playing again comfortably, and that's the key word, comfortably. But it will be difficult because I will want to achieve those heights that I achieved prior. Yes, when I was younger and in better health. This is the problem with, do we dare say, getting old, where the mind is not matching the body. We often wonder why, people as they get older get a little more ornery. Well, that's 3/4 of it right there. They keep on thinking that they can do things that the body just can't do. And I pray that if I ever, right now, by the grace of God, I'm smoking the ball again and I'm playing very well. So that's a great grace. How long will that last? I don't know, but I'm treasuring every minute of it right now. But I will say my Irish temper can get lit very quickly if I don't measure up to the scripture, much expected, to whom much is given. For I have had so much of an opportunity all through the years to seek perfection in hitting the little white ball that my standards are very high. And if I can't achieve them, then I feel like the guy wanting to throw the clubs in the lake. I have to be realistic. I'm thinking of a friend of mine right at the recording of this show who I'll be playing with tomorrow. And unfortunately, it'll be difficult. It'll be difficult for me to witness. Not so much because he's a lower level player. Because he's not able to hit the ball well, he can get into a put down mode of those who do, namely myself. He doesn't throw direct torpedoes at me, but you can kind of tell he's almost like troubled by my hitting the ball too well. And never do I get a little compliment from time to time. Oh, it's called envy. It's called jealousy. All right. And unfortunately, with this particular gentleman, it is a cardinal sin, I do believe, on his part, because he's very much the same person that won't put in any practice time prior to teeing it up. So he'll come out with some of my other golfing pals in the bullpen and try to pretend that he's of the same caliber when he simply isn't. And doesn't put in the time to be better. And it'll tick him off, but it'll be noticeable by his deafening silence. It's very sad. He's a great guy, but golf isn't his gig, and he needs to accept that and then have the fun that Father is talking about. Again, it goes back to the pride thing. You're not the most important person in the world, and you're certainly not the best golfer. And that's golf is a humbling game, that is for sure. It can humble the greatest athletes amongst us. And the nice thing is that the not so great athlete can sometimes get a few lessons under his belt and hit the garbage out of the ball. It's more technique than it is athleticism in some degree. And once again, we go back to that wonderful word that I think the gentleman I referred to at the beginning of the show had most noticeably: docility. Docility. Oh, I love that word, because that really is what brings us to Christ. Father tells us what we learn on the course can help us in other parts of our lives if we take it home with us. We might learn sooner than later that perfection is unattainable, that playing poorly today doesn't eliminate the possibility of doing better the next time out, that making a mistake disciplining our children doesn't make us bad parents. Even Nicholas and the Dalai Lama have had their bad days, but you don't see them throwing up their hands and saying nasty things to themselves. Even if they do, they quickly get themselves back into the balance. We should all be so good at it. Maybe I should finish up with my Jack Nicklaus story. He remains the greatest player of all time by the one-loss record, let us not forget. For I met the Golden Bear out in California at a shark shootout tournament. It was a celebrity golf tournament for the leading money winners over a 30-year span, and there were very few fans. It was really a private tournament, and as a PGA professional, I was able to get in as a fan. So I was literally watching Jack Nicklaus. Who else was he playing with? Andy Bean, Greg Norman, and Bruce Litsky. That was the foursome. And as Jack turned to his son, Jack Jr., to get a stick of bubble gum out of his bag, I walked right over to him. And I just thanked him. And I told him I was a PGA professional, and you've given me so much enjoyment just watching you all through the years. And I was tearing up because I was meeting my boyhood idol. And in any event, I walked along the side of the fairway as he was playing the hole, and it was really about a minute or two later, he actually turned to me and said, "The best of luck to you." And I just went, oh my God, I just got the blessing of the bear. The Golden Bear, his nickname. But I think it highlights what Father is trying to tell us. What was it that's really most important to me anyway about the game of golf, but enjoying it, not perfecting it, but just having fun. And boy, is that a really important aspect of a healthy spiritual life. When you can't have fun anymore, that's when you got to get to the couch. We're not going there. As Mark Twain once said, golf is a good walk spoiled. Okay, and we still love the game. This is WQPH Radio 89.3 FM on the other side. Our book review, Building a Wholesome Family in a Broken World. We definitely see a common theme in reclaiming Catholic masculinity. And in this book, as well as all the other books that I've been reading to you, we see chastity, living chastely, as paramount to being a real man. Please keep that in mind in the locker room, especially when you're, talking bad talk. You know what I'm saying, guys? You know what I'm saying. Chastity rules. Throw that around as often as possible. The revolution of purity, I call it. And the other particular, and this is this business of staying chaste, especially until marriage, i.e. virginity rules. Also, this is at the heart of the Habsburg way, which has been a very successful way for over 800 plus years. And in addition to chastity is a shared faith, trying to find a Catholic for those of us that are Catholic. Because as soon as you more or less wave the white flag to your spouse of little faith, it's ball game in many respects. It's going to be very difficult, troubling, rocky. The road is going to be long and winding. You're making it a much more difficult path. Doesn't mean that it can't lead to heaven, but you're certainly making it a lot more difficult if you find somebody who's an even match, as we would call it scripturally, evenly yoked. And so he really puts an emphasis on this. He just comes straight out and says, a shared Catholic faith is at the top of my list of what to look for in a spouse. And so in order to be a real man, what goes with that is finding a real woman. And that's where we are right now. And so we start here today with the lovely subtopic, falling in love. The question is asked, yes, Archduke, but what about falling in love? Doesn't that play a role? Are you against dancing and flirting and romance? I hope you're not a Puritan who can conceive only of marriages of pure reason. You can't help falling in love, the Archduke says. Most people fall in love a lot. It's a beautiful thing. By all means, go out, go to parties, dance, even flirt. This is fun and a natural part of human life. Just keep in mind that while falling in love can be an indication that you have found Mr. or Mrs. Right, it doesn't have to be. Just ask your married friends how often they fell in love and how many people they married. What I do suggest is that before you take a relationship in a serious direction, take a step back, take a deep breath, and recheck the checklist. If you and someone else begin to get serious about each other, you will want to spend lots of time together. You will feel, of course, the wonderful feeling of getting to know each other. But don't stop thinking. Find out whether your ideas and interests are compatible, whether your personalities are complementary, whether you click. Learn about the other person's background, family, and history. But do not have an intimate relationship with each other. Not at this point. Don't. Just don't. Definitely don't. Why? It is hard enough to be rational when you're dreamingly in love. Hard enough to judge impartially whether it can work out forever. It is impossible to think clearly about your future when you're thinking about physical passion. You have years, decades, and decades, I hope, for all of that. But don't I have to test whether we are physically compatible? You ask? What silliness. You have the argument inside out and backward and upside down. If you are right for each other, and if you love each other, and if you are made for each other, you will grow together, live together, and love together. And you will be very physically compatible. It stands to reason. If people give you a puzzled look because as a discerning couple, you will not take a room together when traveling, have faith and remember that you are working courageously to build a wholesome family in an unwholesome world. If the world has gone mad, don't be afraid to do something that the world considers madness. But now let us go through the checklist in more detail. But before that, a few personal anecdotes. Ladies and gentlemen, you do know that Tim was a stud in his day. Of course, he's a stud today in a different way. But I think of so many women that I did date. Oh, you can quote me on that. And I'm thinking of one in California who said exactly the business about being physically compatible is like, trying out a bicycle. Just got to kind of try it out and see if it kind of fits. That particular woman is, well, I don't know if she still is miserable, but she was about 10 years later when I called her up just to check in on her. She had bounced from one guy to the next. Yep. Trying out the bicycles in her early 20s into her later 20s. I think I might have checked in on her in her early 30s, whatever, and she was not a happy camper and not married, and yet put all this emphasis on education. She had a law degree, she had an MBA, but she had given the store away too many times, let us just say. And I say to it all, big deal, big deal. It didn't bring the joy. So the liberal agenda doesn't work, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. And she had all the gifts, intellectually and physically for sure, okay? And I'm just grateful that because of my background of great parents who lived chastely with a shared Catholic faith and taught that value to me, I was able to kind of let go in the nick of time because she was quite a lure. This is what he's talking about. I remember another very lovely lady on the first date. She told me that she was pro-choice. I shouldn't have gone to the second date. That was another mistake on my part. Another reason why I'm single today. I hung out in that relationship way too long, and it was going nowhere. And it probably was based on the first date. But because I was an idiot guy at the time, I was valuing her prettiness way too much. Okay? Compatibility on the big time issues was way more important. Had that been a sexual relationship, it would have been a disaster. She was willing to forego all that heady talk, suppress her deepest feelings and positions on issues, because I was kind of good enough in other regards. No, ladies and gentlemen, you got to really prioritize your values and make sure that this compliment is truly a compliment and not going to be ribbing you and needling you for the rest of your life as your opposite, because you really don't see things eye to eye. In the dating years, I've known way too many women that are willing to suppress all that heady stuff, the cerebral stuff. Now, I put that, I just want to know that he loves me, Well, no, sorry. Love is truth. What happened to truth and love? They go together. Too often, because of, their emotional programming, they weigh the feelings and the closeness and the proximity way too heavily in those early dating years. They weigh it later on, too, where the husband can't have any friends. We're supposed to be complementary, and we have a mind, and we got to use it and think carefully and use our logic and reason, all right? This is not just a man thing. So he's hitting it right on the button. Just hold the horses and spend a lot of time together. A lot of time together. Do you like being with her all the time? I think it's called the rest of your life together. That's huge. Now the Archduke is just going to share a few more detailed thoughts about the importance of faith in this dating time. He says, Mother Teresa was fond of quoting Father Patrick Peyton's famous phrase, "The family that prays together stays together." The same goes for couples. You improve your chances of building a solid relationship or discovering whether it is really good if you pray together while you are getting to know each other. I know of a couple who prayed the rosary together in person and over the phone long before they got engaged. It is good to welcome God into your discernment process from the beginning. It is also good training for the time you will live together if you end up together. We live in crazy, chaotic times. You and your spouse have no idea how your decades of life will unfold. You may have wonderful times of abundance. You may live in times of war or famine. You may have many children or none. You may be healthy, or one or both of you may be bedridden for years. You have no idea. Putting God in the center of your life will give you the best chance of handling whatever comes your way, particularly with the help of the Catholic Church. Is having a devout spouse a perfect money-back guarantee that your marriage will succeed? Hardly. But even then, faith will give you the hope and strength to get up again and hobble your way forward. And we'll keep hobbling because that's what love does. This is WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. To the beach. Have a great week. God bless. Let your light shine. That is what it's all about here at WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. But we need to hear your story. You want your voice to be his voice. That is making the faith known to others. Please, my number is 877-625-3727. Tim Kilcoyne, TalkCatholic.com. Say, Mother Teresa told us, your ministry is your work right where you are. Grab on to this microphone. God bless.